Hi, grade 5 teachers, and welcome to our very last topic of the 2020-21 school year. This is the end of theme 4. You'll notice that this is an optional topic. I highly recommend checking out this theme 4 flow map and this overview video to see if this topic is going to best fit the needs of your students, depending on time and student readiness. This topic is graphing on the coordinate plane. And we're going to start off by just figuring out the first quadrant and ordered pairs and what that graphing looks like. And then we're going to move into some of that problem solving and real world applications on that coordinate grid and what that looks like. So as always, we have parent newsletters here, discourse cards, some hybrid learning activities that could be printed or used digitally. And you can always pop into Ready Common Core for some more activities and ideas, or into Blackboard to help with your planning. So let's kind of dive in. Our very first essential task 78. Once again, this really is just kind of getting used to that first quadrant in the coordinate grid. And the first quadrant is where we're going to stay in 5th grade. This does start with a Ready Common Core interactive video. I highly recommend using that. It does a great job kind of linking what the number lines and the coordinate grid system and why we have it and how to use it. I would, however, stop after 73% completion or that instruction part 17. It kind of goes into some parts of the coordinate plane that they don't need yet that you can always come back to later. So once again, just kind of making that connection between that number line, that horizontal number line, the vertical number line, talking about that X and Y axes, talking about ordered pairs. So this first one really is kind of just a lot of vocabulary, and then just practicing how we can plot some of these images on those ordered, on that first quadrant of that coordinate plane, excuse me. So there's some practice here. You can use the Ready Common Core book, as well as some practice items. Our next essential task, once again, we're really just locating and naming points. So they're plotting these first two are done. They can continue to plot these points. So there's a couple options here. They can use the line tool, which coming up here, line, to connect the dots. They could also scribble to connect the dots. There's also a Jamboard here that they could just use their fingers to connect the dots. Whatever is easiest for students, have them go for it. Just once again, this is just really practicing plotting points and using those ordered pairs. There's a LearnZillion video there to help if needed. Here's a coordinate plane. This one, we're really talking about using the coordinate plane as directions or different paths that they could take. So that is there's a bunch of scaffolding questions in that Ready Common Core textbook. So definitely I highly recommend utilizing that to kind of help talk students or guide students, facilitate students as they work through that. Once again, a bunch of practice here for students to do. Whoops, I apologize on that. All right, essential task 80. We're going to start this essential task. So we're going to kind of take a step back from the coordinate plane for 1 second and look at some patterns. This is that OA standard, because that OA standard, that OA3 is really interconnected with that 5G2. So how can we look at corresponding terms and patterns, and how does that relate to ordered pairs? So in this lesson, they're really looking at two different patterns together and how they're related. So for example, this one, they're comparing the cost of frozen yogurts to the cost of sandwiches, and they're completing the table for each. They're noticing the pattern for each. So for this one, for example, the yogurts, since it's $3 each, we're going to see a pattern of adding 3, right, or counting by 3. Down here, we're going to see for the sandwiches, we're going to see that pattern of +6, which we'll see here. So then we're going to think about how do those compare what's the relationship between the frozen yogurt and the sandwiches? And obviously, we all know that it is double, right? The sandwiches cost 2 times the amount of the frozen yogurts. Then we're going to talk about how we can use that data and put it onto ordered pairs. And how is that going to help us compare those costs? So they're going to be practicing this. We're not plotting anything yet. We're just looking at patterns and talking about that relationship between two patterns and using those ordered pairs to help us with our thinking. Then we're going to transition into Essential Task 81, where we're really going to be looking at those patterns, those relationships, and what does that look like when we put it on that coordinate plane. So this is going to kind of tie all of those lessons in together, and how's that relationship. So a couple different practice items here, tried out problems here. And then there is a practice on your own video that you can utilize, and they can continue to practice that skill. Okay, last but not least, our very last essential task, Essential Task 82. This is slightly different. We're going to be looking at 2 different patterns again, except this time we're graphing them on 2 separate lines. So before we were comparing them together, now we're comparing our 2 lines, or our 2 patterns. So for example, here we go. We can see these 2. This is the answer for this this tried out problem here, with the class collecting the most books by the end of the week. So we have the number of days we'll see on our x-axis, the number of books collected on our y. We'll do Mr. Lee in one color, Ms. Romero in one color, and we'll kind of see that pattern and see how they relate, and see who did. We can answer that question of who did sell the most books by the end of the week. So there's 2 different, there's one here for Alexa and Michael, and then there is one here for these 2 classes. There is a LearnZillion video to support this and to help with that verbiage and to help with those patterns and comparisons and how we can use that coordinate plane to represent a situation. And then we have some practice down there as well. So that is a really quick rundown of these essential tasks. Please let us know if you have any questions. And thanks so much for all you did this year.